Have you ever wondered why your morning coffee wakes your mind but leaves your body behind? Why you feel switched on for a little while, then flat, restless, and somehow less like yourself? Today, I want to show you how to turn that same cup into something steadier, calmer, and more useful for male vitality. Not with exotic powders, not with a drawer full of expensive supplements. With 5 simple ingredients most men can find in an ordinary kitchen, health store, or pharmacy. And one important warning, because if you miss this one detail, the routine can sound smart, taste fine, and still disappoint you. Listen, after 50, many men quietly start making deals with decline. They tell themselves this is just aging, less energy, less morning drive, slower recovery, less confidence in intimacy. And yes, age changes the body, but age is rarely the whole story. Very often, the bigger issue is how the body manages blood sugar, circulation, stress signals, sleep debt, and hormone balance. And your first coffee of the day can push those systems in a better direction or a worse one. That is why this matters more than it seems. Because coffee is not just a drink, it is a metabolic event. For some men, it sharpens thinking and lifts mood. For others, it creates a hard rise, then a quiet drop. And that drop is not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like irritability by late morning. Sometimes it looks like shaky hunger, poor patience, and a second cup before noon. Sometimes it looks like brain fog, flat motivation, and less interest in closeness. And sometimes, yes, it shows up in erectile function. Because the systems behind energy and the systems behind circulation overlap more than men realize. What supports blood vessels often supports performance. What stresses blood vessels often reduces reliability. I am not saying coffee is the problem. Actually, no, let me say that more carefully. Coffee can be very useful, but the way you build that cup matters. Think of coffee as a delivery system. If the cargo is wrong, you get speed without stability. If the cargo is right, you get alertness with better fuel control, vascular support, and a more reliable morning. That is the purpose of this video. We are not trying to create a miracle drink. We are trying to make the same habit work harder for you. Better glucose rhythm, better blood vessel signaling, better stress adaptation, better raw material for hormone production, small upgrades, real physiology. And here is my promise. By the end, you will know which ingredient to start with first. You will also know why many men sabotage this routine before it has any chance to help. That part comes later. Because first, you need the bigger picture. Most men say the same sentence, "I'm just tired." But tired is not one problem. Tired can mean poor sleep. It can mean blood sugar instability. It can mean low movement, excess body fat, high stress, poor protein intake, heavy alcohol use, medication effects, low testosterone, or mild depression. Sometimes it means several of those at once. That is why I do not like one-size-fits-all answers. Still, patterns repeat. A man wakes already unrefreshed. He drinks coffee on an empty stomach. He feels sharper for a little while. Then the wobble begins. Cravings rise, patience falls, his focus becomes noisy, and by afternoon he reaches for more caffeine, more sugar, or both. That rhythm is not kind to long-term energy. It is also not ideal for hormonal health, because stable energy is not just about productivity. It affects training, it affects mood, it affects sleep quality later that night, it affects blood vessels, appetite, libido, and how resilient you feel under stress. And when those systems slide together, men often assume decline is normal. It may be common. That does not mean it is optimal. So let's rebuild the cup, not with fantasy, with practical ingredients, each doing one clear job. The first is Ceylon cinnamon, and no, not all cinnamon is the same. Ceylon is the version I prefer for regular use. Its profile is gentler, especially if you plan to use it often. The value here is not just flavor. The value is metabolic support. Cinnamon may help the body handle glucose more smoothly. That matters because wide glucose swings can create unstable energy, stronger cravings, and more stress on delicate blood vessels. And the smallest blood vessels are often the first to struggle. Those vessels matter in the brain, they matter in the kidneys, and they matter in erectile function. Good circulation is not one giant pipe, it is a network, a very responsive network. That network behaves better when blood sugar is less chaotic. So cinnamon is not just a taste upgrade, it is a rhythm upgrade. It helps turn a harsher ride into a steadier one. That is why some men notice fewer late morning crashes, not because cinnamon is magical, because the body performs better with less turbulence. Here is the practical use. Start with about half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Stir it in well. If you dislike the texture, blend the drink for a few seconds. That small step matters more than men think. If the routine tastes gritty, they stop doing it. And consistency matters more than intensity. Now, what might you feel first? Usually not some dramatic surge. More often, men notice steadier focus, fewer cravings, and less of that empty drop. Subtle improvements. But subtle, repeated daily, becomes meaningful over time. That is the pattern you want. Not stimulation without control. Steady output, better mornings, less friction. Let me make this more concrete. Imagine 2 mornings. In the first, a man drinks sweet coffee fast, then grabs a pastry. He feels strong for an hour. By 10:30, he is distracted, hungry, and annoyed at everyone. In the second, the same man drinks coffee with cinnamon, less sugar, and a little more intention. The morning feels less dramatic, but by late morning, he is still steady. That second morning wins, not because it feels exciting, because it keeps working. And by the way, if you have liver disease, take many medications, or have very sensitive digestion, speak with your doctor first. Natural does not mean irrelevant. It still interacts with the body. Now let's move to ingredient number 2, unsweetened cocoa powder. This one surprises many men. They hear cocoa and think dessert. In the right form, cocoa is more interesting than that. Unsweetened cocoa contains flavonols. Those compounds can support nitric oxide signaling. Nitric oxide is one of the body's key signals for vessel relaxation. And relaxed vessels usually mean better blood flow. That matters for blood pressure regulation. It matters for exercise performance. And yes, it matters for erections. Because erectile function is not only about desire, it is also about blood flow arriving at the right time in the right way. Many men miss that point. They think the issue must be purely hormonal. Sometimes hormones play a role. Sometimes circulation is the quieter, bigger piece. That is why cocoa earns its place in this protocol. Not as candy, as support for the endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels. When that lining functions better, blood flow tends to behave better. Again, this is support, not a guarantee. But meaningful support is exactly what many men need. Here is how to use it. Add about 1 teaspoon of pure, unsweetened cocoa powder, not sweetened chocolate mix, not a powdered dessert drink, pure cocoa. The taste may feel bitter at first. That is normal. Give it a week. Actually, no, give it closer to 10 days. Many men adapt once they stop expecting sweetness every morning. And there is another benefit here. Cocoa can make the drink feel richer and more satisfying. That matters because a satisfying drink reduces the urge for processed snacks. And when processed snacks drop, blood sugar often behaves better too. So now you have 2 useful layers: cinnamon for steadier glucose handling, cocoa for vessel support, and a more satisfying cup. That is already a very different coffee. Not louder, smarter. Let me ask you something. What do you notice first when your morning routine is off? Is it low stamina? Is it brain fog? Is it poor mood, shaky hunger, or weaker confidence? I ask because men often focus on the symptom that embarrasses them most, but the body usually shows a chain. Low sleep becomes poor glucose control. Poor glucose control becomes low patience and more belly fat. More belly fat becomes worse hormone signaling. Worse hormone signaling becomes lower motivation and less reliable sexual function. One system leans on another. That is why small kitchen habits deserve more respect than they get. Picture the inside of a healthy blood vessel, flexible, responsive, calm. Now picture a vessel under constant metabolic stress, less flexible, less responsive, more irritated. You do not feel that shift as one dramatic event. You feel it as a series of disappointments. Less endurance on a walk, less warmth in the hands, more pressure in the head, less reliable performance in intimacy, less confidence even before anything happens. That is often how vascular decline announces itself, quietly. And now we come to ingredient number 3, Peruvian maca. This is the one men usually ask about first, mostly because they have heard it described like a miracle. Let's keep this honest. Maca is not testosterone in powder form. It does not replace testing. It does not replace evaluation when symptoms are serious. And it does not work the same for every man. What it may do for some men is support libido, resilience, stamina, and a greater sense of vitality. In simple terms, it may help the system feel more adaptable. That matters after 50. Because many men are not dealing with one isolated problem. They are dealing with accumulated strain. Poor sleep, more visceral fat, higher stress, less muscle, more alcohol than they admit, less movement than their body needs, lower recovery than they had 10 years ago. In that landscape, an adaptogenic ingredient makes sense, not as a shortcut, as support. Some men describe maca in very practical language. They say, my interest came back, or my energy feels cleaner, or my head feels less cloudy. Those are subjective changes, but subjective changes matter. Quality of life is subjective. If a man feels more initiative, that matters. If he feels more resilient under stress, that matters. If he feels more open to closeness, that matters too. The practical dose depends on the product, so read the label carefully. Start low. Do not jump to a heavy dose on the first day. And if you have hormone-sensitive conditions, or you take multiple therapies, discuss it with your doctor first. That is especially important when men decide to combine several supplements at once. This is also where psychology enters the picture, because men do something very predictable. They buy 5 ingredients, they create the perfect routine, they feel motivated for 3 mornings, then life gets busy. The routine feels annoying, and it disappears. That is not a knowledge problem, that is a friction problem. And friction is one of the biggest enemies of men's health. Not lack of information. Friction. A routine that is slightly less perfect but repeatable is better than a perfect plan you quit. So if you try maca, do not judge it by one heroic morning. Watch patterns over weeks. Mood, drive, stamina, mental clarity, stress tolerance. That is how you evaluate it fairly, not with hype, with observation. Now let's pause for a second. Many men think vitality is one switch. It is not. It is a control panel. Blood sugar here, sleep over there, stress in the background, hormones everywhere, vessels running through all of it. Touch one lever and another moves. That is why this coffee protocol can help. It does not chase one isolated symptom. It supports several systems at the same time. Ingredient number 4 is coconut oil, or MCT oil. This is the fuel piece. Your body needs adequate healthy fats for many functions. That includes cell membranes, satiety, brain stability, and hormone production. Testosterone does not appear from nowhere. The body builds hormones from raw material. That does not mean more oil automatically means more testosterone. Please do not oversimplify it like that. But it does mean a low-quality, high-sugar breakfast pattern is not helpful for many men. MCTs, or medium-chain triglycerides, are handled differently than many other fats. They can be used relatively quickly as fuel. Some men feel steadier when coffee includes a little fat. Less jittery, less abruptly hungry, more focused. That makes sense. Fat slows the ride down, in a good way. Instead of caffeine hitting a completely empty system, you create more ballast, more control, more staying power. The practical use is simple. Start with about 1 teaspoon. Blend it if possible. That changes the texture completely. If you just pour oil into coffee and barely stir, most men will hate it. And once again, if the experience is unpleasant, the routine dies. Start small. Too much too quickly can upset digestion. That is not failure. That is your gut asking for a slower introduction. If you have gallbladder problems, fat malabsorption, pancreatitis history, or significant digestive issues, ask your doctor first. This is not a competition. It is an experiment. What I like about this ingredient is how it changes the character of coffee. The cup becomes less like a spark, more like a controlled burn. That can be helpful for men who feel wired and hungry after caffeine. It may also reduce the urge for sweet snacks. And when snack pressure falls, glucose often becomes easier to manage. See how the levers connect? That is the protocol mindset. Nothing stands alone. One better choice makes the next better choice easier. A steadier morning often leads to a better lunch. A better lunch often leads to fewer cravings. Fewer cravings often lead to better waistline control. And better waistline control often supports testosterone and insulin sensitivity. That is how real change usually happens. Not one giant decision, a chain of smaller ones. Now let's slow down for a more important point. A lot of men were taught a false equation. More stimulation equals more masculinity. It does not. Sometimes more stimulation simply means more depletion later. What many men need is not more caffeine aggression. They need steadier output, calmer confidence, more dependable energy. That is very different. And it brings us to ingredient number 5, ginger. This one is deeply underrated. Ginger supports circulation, digestion, and antioxidant defense. It also has interesting links to pathways involved in male hormonal health. No, it is not a direct testosterone booster in the cartoon sense, but it may support the environment those systems live in, and environment matters. Oxidative stress is expensive for the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is expensive too. The more background stress your cells manage, the less room they have for optimal function. Ginger helps make that background quieter. It can also create a warming effect that many men enjoy, not just in the mouth, in the body. There is a reason traditional systems use ginger so often. Not as a cure, as a steady, daily helper. In coffee, it adds a useful edge, a sharper, warmer note. And physiologically, that can pair well with the rest of the formula. You only need a small amount. A pinch of ginger powder is enough to begin. Fresh ginger is another option, though it changes texture more. If you use it regularly, pay attention to tolerance, and please remember the safety point. If you take blood thinners or you bruise easily, ask your doctor before using ginger regularly. That is not optional advice. It is basic caution. So now you have the full 5. Ceylon cinnamon, unsweetened cocoa powder, Peruvian maca, coconut oil or MCT oil, and ginger. Each one does a different job. One supports glucose rhythm. One helps nitric oxide signaling and blood flow. One may support resilience, libido, and clearer vitality. One improves fuel stability. One supports vascular tone and cellular defense. Together, they create a more intelligent cup, not a stronger one, a more strategic one. Here is the lazy version I promised. Pre-mix equal parts of cinnamon, cocoa, and maca in one jar. Keep it beside your coffee. Each morning, add 1 teaspoon of that blend. Then add your small amount of coconut oil or MCT oil. Then add a pinch of ginger. Done. No complicated measuring, no mental debate at 6:30 in the morning. No excuse that the routine takes too long. And if you are thinking, "Doctor, that still sounds like too much," I understand. Which is exactly why I do not want you to begin with all 5. Start with 1. This is the 30-day experiment. Pick the ingredient that best matches your main issue. Choose cinnamon if your energy crashes. Choose cocoa if circulation is your focus. Choose MCT oil if coffee makes you jittery and hungry. Choose maca if your issue is flat drive and low vitality. Choose ginger if you want a simple starting point for circulation and warmth. Then stay with that one choice for 30 days. Track 3 things: morning energy, mood, and physical confidence. Keep it simple. A notebook is enough. 1 short line each day. Better, same, worse. Or, if you prefer, rate the morning from poor to strong. What matters is consistency. Because men often trust memory too much, memory lies. Written patterns are more honest. And sometimes tracking changes behavior by itself. You notice sleep sooner. You notice alcohol sooner. You notice the late dessert sooner. You notice that poor nights become poor mornings, no matter what the coffee contains. That awareness is useful. It turns vague frustration into usable data. Let me give you an example. A man starts with cinnamon. By day 4, he says nothing changed. By day 10, he notices less urgency for snacks. By day 16, he realizes he has stopped reaching for the second coffee. By day 23, his mood before lunch is better. That is not flashy, but that is progress. Another man starts with cocoa. He does not notice anything dramatic in the gym, but 2 weeks later he tells me his hands feel warmer. His walks feel easier. His confidence in intimacy feels less fragile. Again, not fireworks, but a real shift. A third man starts with MCT oil. He was using coffee like an emergency tool, fast, empty, aggressive. Then he adds a small amount of fat. Suddenly, the morning feels less jagged. He is less irritable. He is less desperate for food by mid-morning. He thinks more clearly in meetings. That is how these changes often arrive, quietly. And if you have already tried one of these ingredients, pay attention to what changed first. Energy, appetite, mood, training tolerance, mental sharpness, confidence in intimacy. Most men assume the first sign must be sexual. Not always. Sometimes better sexual function starts with better sleep. Sometimes better sleep starts with better blood sugar control. Sometimes better blood sugar control starts with a less chaotic morning. That is why the first win may look small, but small wins matter. Now we need to talk about the warning section. This is the part many men skip, and it is exactly why good routines underperform. Here it is. For many men, this coffee protocol will not work well in a sleep-deprived, highly stressed, under-muscled body. That is the mistake, not the ingredients, the context. If you sleep 5 hours, scroll late into the night, move very little, eat poorly, and live on stress, no upgraded coffee can rescue that foundation. It can help. It cannot replace fundamentals. And there is a second common mistake. Men add healthy ingredients, then pour in sugar syrup, sweet creamer, whipped toppings, and eat a pastry beside it. That cancels much of the point. You cannot ask for metabolic stability while building dessert for breakfast. That is not criticism. That is physiology. There is also the medication issue. Some men hear natural and assume safe for everyone. No. If you take medication for blood sugar, blood pressure, clotting, mood, or heart rhythm, ask your doctor or pharmacist first. Even food-based routines can matter when repeated every day. And if you have chest pain, major fatigue, rapid loss of strength, severe erectile change, or sudden decline in well-being, do not self-diagnose. Please get evaluated. Sometimes what looks like aging is a medical issue. Low testosterone can be real. Sleep apnea can be real. Diabetes can be real. Vascular disease can be real. Depression can be real. This coffee routine belongs inside a smart health plan, not inside denial. That is the serious part. Now let's close the loop from the beginning. I told you one detail could make this whole routine disappoint you. That detail is this. Do not ask a supportive habit to do the work of an entire strategy. Use the coffee as a lever, not as a fantasy. The men who benefit most are usually the ones who pair it with the basics. Protein at breakfast or soon after, morning light in the eyes, a short walk, resistance training even modestly, better sleep timing, less alcohol, more muscle work, a little less waistline. Those things make the ingredients more effective. They create a body that can respond. And once the body responds, the signs are very practical. You wake with more steadiness. You are less irritable by noon. Your thoughts feel cleaner. Your workouts feel less heavy. Your appetite becomes less chaotic. Your interest in intimacy feels less forced. Your confidence returns, quietly but clearly. That word matters to me, quietly, because real improvement often arrives without drama. Not like a commercial, more like a man saying, "Something feels better this month." That is how many meaningful changes begin. By the way, here's a question for you. What would you rather fix first, morning energy or evening confidence? If you are honest, most men already know their answer, and once a man admits what matters most, he usually becomes more consistent. That honesty is powerful. Because embarrassment keeps men passive, clarity makes them act. One more thing, do not chase every trend. You do not need 12 ingredients. You do not need a silver bullet. You need a repeatable routine your body actually tolerates. That is the real standard. Repeatable, measurable, sustainable. If this kind of evidence-aware routine is useful to you, a like helps other men find it. And that matters, because too many men stay silent about energy, hormones, and erectile changes for too long. Silence delays action, and delayed action usually means a narrower set of options later. If you want a simple next step, do this tomorrow. Make your usual coffee. Add one carefully chosen ingredient. Then pay attention. Not for 1 hour, for 30 days. Because the goal is not a quick jolt. The goal is better male aging, more stable energy, better vascular support, a better environment for testosterone, and a stronger sense that your body still works with you, not against you. After 50, that is worth protecting. Actually, no, it is worth building deliberately. Your age is real. But decline is not the only story available to you. Sometimes the path forward starts with blood work. Sometimes it starts with a sleep study. Sometimes it starts with resistance training. And sometimes it starts with a smarter morning cup. Small choice, big ripple. That is how many men get momentum back. One useful habit, then another, and suddenly the day feels different, the body feels more responsive, the future feels less narrow. Let me leave you with one practical image. Do not think of this coffee as a magic potion. Think of it as morning fuel calibration. You are taking a habit you already have and making it less chaotic blood sugar, less chaotic appetite, less chaotic stress response, and in many men, less chaotic sexual confidence. That is a meaningful upgrade, especially when it costs very little, especially when it fits real life, especially when it helps a man feel less at war with his own body. Try the experiment. Keep it simple. Stay observant. And please, if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, prostate treatment, or you take regular medication, discuss changes with your doctor first. Your body deserves curiosity, not guesswork. And your morning routine should help you feel more alive, not merely more awake. Because that is the real goal here. Not stimulation, not hype, not pretending you are 30 again. The goal is function. Clearer mornings, steadier energy, better circulation, better resilience, better odds that your confidence matches the man you still are. And yes, better support for the hormonal environment that helps men stay strong, engaged, and present. That is a very reasonable goal, and it is far more realistic than most marketing promises. You do not need perfection, you need direction. A cup that works with your physiology instead of against it is a good place to begin. So begin there. One ingredient, 1 month, one honest set of notes. Then let your body answer. That answer will be more useful than hype, more useful than fear, and much more useful than doing nothing at all.